Bonjour, my name is Lorena Fontaine, and I'm a member of the Saugeen First Nation in Manitoba. But I also consider the Opaskwayak Cree Nation as home because that's where my mother is from. My mother attended 3 different residential schools starting at the age of 3, and she finally went home at the age of 16. The schools she attended were St. Albans, All Saints, and Elkhorn in Saskatchewan. For me, the importance of sharing my childhood and adult life with other Aboriginal women on this project was a very powerful experience because I was able to share my experiences and have it acknowledged by other women who had gone through similar experiences. Until that point, no one had ever asked me what I had experienced as a child or about the complexities of my relationship with my mother. The discussions we had as a group lifted a big burden of silence and shame that I had been carrying since I was a child. My video focuses on my journey into motherhood. When I found out I was pregnant with my daughter Sarah, I was terrified. I felt that I didn't have any mothering skills to offer her. I also didn't know very much about my culture, my history, and I couldn't speak my language. When I started to talk to my aunts, my mother, and elders from my community, I realized that Aboriginal women have carried our traditions of birthing. The message in my video that I would like to share is one of hope. In spite of the government's attempt to destroy my people's culture in the residential school system, our traditions of birthing remain strong within the collective memories of Aboriginal women. When I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter Sarah, I was keenly aware of the impact the residential schools had on my life. I thought to myself, I don't know how to be a mother. What am I going to bring to this child's life? I know very little about my people's history. I don't know how to speak my language. I was terrified to bring a child into this world because I didn't think I had anything to give a baby. I think a part of me was also afraid that someone would see right through me and recognize my inability to be a mother, and then they would take away my child. This is the story of my journey into motherhood. After the shock of my pregnancy wore off, my instinct told me that I needed to have Sarah at home. The first battle I faced was that home births were not yet legal in the province I was living in, so the doctors refused to see me after I informed them that I was contemplating a home birth. I had to pretend that I was going to deliver my baby in a hospital in order to obtain the services of a doctor. After I did a bit of research on midwifery, I arranged to have 2 Aboriginal midwives present during my delivery. It was legal in Manitoba to have a baby at home if there were 2 certified midwives present. After I made arrangements with the midwives, Sarah's birth fell into place. 2 weeks prior to her due date, my partner and I packed up our car and drove to my mother's place. We spent the next 14 days walking amongst the trees and the rocks that surrounded my family for generations. The land seemed to wash away any fears that I had about the birth. On Sarah's due date, one of my midwives requested a sweat lodge ceremony. Sometime during the sweat, I started to have contractions. After 12 hours of hard labor, I didn't think I was going to be able to deliver Sarah on my own. I felt so weak. Then I noticed a picture of my grandmother hanging on the wall. The image of her standing beside 14 children gave me the burst of energy I needed. I thought to myself, if my grandmother could give birth 14 times, I can get through this one. Right before Sarah was born, my auntie put tobacco out for the sacred journey we were experiencing. My mother was the first person to hold Sarah. She greeted her in our sacred Cree language. Then the cedar water that Sarah was bathed in was poured along the side of the house to connect her to the earth. A few days later, Sarah's placenta and umbilical cord were buried in a sacred place on the reserve so that she would always be connected to our territory. Sarah's birth was extremely political. She was the first child to be born in my community in over 50 years. I learned that the birthing process resides in the collective memory of Aboriginal women in my life, the residential school experience did not destroy that part of our life.
Sarah.